Hello, so this is my third video where I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on a book I've read recently. So I'm going to be talking about William Faulkner's book, As I Lay Dying, which I gave a shot at reading recently. I'm a big fan of Cormack McCarthy's novels. I've read a few of his books, I really like them. And when I was reading about Cormac McCarthy, or listening to podcasts about his work or whatever, a lot of things pointed to me towards William Faulkner, because apparently William Faulkner is the big writer in the American South, and Cormac McCarthy took a lot of his style and his traditions and kind of made them his own, and is kind of like the heir to his legacy, if you like. So I thought I'd investigate, and I downloaded a few ebooks onto my Kindle by William Faulkner, and I started with one of the more famous ones, As I Lay Dying, his novel from 1930. So, As I Lay Dying tells the story of a family who the mother of the family dies, and I think they basically just go on a little journey to try and find somewhere to bury her body. And it's written in first person, from the point of view of a number of characters. A lot of other books have used this technique, possibly taking it from this one, where the chapters are just named after the character, and then it's all kind of from this perspective of their voice or the thoughts in their head. The book, I guess, is quite clearly a modernist novel, because it does a thing a lot of modernist novels do, where it uses stream of consciousness. So rather than writing in ordinary sentences that start and end quite easily, the sentences Faulkner uses are often very long and flowing, so written basically to represent thoughts we have in our heads, which don't break up into easily readable sentences. They tend to be more random and sprawling. So I picked up on that, but what I didn't pick up on very well is who all these characters were and what the story was about. I found it very confusing to he doesn't spell things out easily for you to work out which characters which, how old they are, what they're like. It takes a fair bit of close reading. You have to slow down, keep an eye on what's going on. So that kind of made me struggle to enjoy and understand the book. So I would recommend, if anyone was to start reading As I Lay Dying, I'd say prepare yourself, know what you're getting yourself in for. Maybe have a little, find somewhere where you can read the characters' bios, so you have an idea of who they actually are. Or just read very slowly and very closely, bearing in mind it's going to be written in all these first-person perspectives. Another problem I had with the book, a problem by my own fault, was there's this big middle section where the family try and cross a river, and it just seemed to go on, and I found it very hard to orient myself as to what was going on. It wasn't helped by the fact that this is like a big crazy event, and it skips from all these characters' heads from one to the other in quite short chapters, in all their different voices. And if I'd read slowly and paid attention, I would have known what was going on, where everyone was in the river. But because it didn't really hold my attention, I found myself skipping through it almost at points. So it's a hard book, definitely. And I think this is maybe something particularly American, young people do in school. I guess it would be a good book to do in school, because unless you're quite an advanced reader or a patient reader, you probably would need that extra level of explanation, the kind of thing you might get reading, a Dickens or a Shakespeare in school, where the teacher will slow down and spell things out for you. So I can understand that would be a good place to study this novel, or read it for your own pleasure. Yeah, the sovereign voices and the sovereign accents in this book came across very well, just like they do in Cormac McCarthy's books, without it getting too cheesy or distracting. William Faulkner kind of throws in the kind of southern phrases and rhythms into the sentences and the characters' dialogue and in their thoughts, which work really well. I find it very pleasing to read stuff like that, so I can recommend the book for that. He also, like Cormac McCarthy, he also has some very nice kind of description of the environment. The environment seems to be a very important thing in the novel. The kind of crazy, wild southern landscape reflects on the crazy, wild things going on in the story, and there's a fairly strong connection between nature and the land, and the characters and their bodies. They're all kind of weathered and worn and vanishing into the landscape. that comes across stronger, I think, in McCarthy's books, but it's definitely there in Faulkner's, and that was quite enjoyable. The other thing about this book that was good was towards the end, for me anyway, the book did become more coherent. It seemed to be all kind of a slow burn, building towards this finale where things actually started to happen at a rate where it's fairly quick, fast enough to hold your attention, and fairly easy to understand. So once I'd oriented myself as to who each character was and what their backstories and their dilemmas and their problems were, the story got a lot more enjoyable. But just as it started to get enjoyable, unfortunately it finished. So that was a shame. Yeah, I might come back to this book, or I might try and read some more Faulkner. I would have liked to enjoy it, but I just didn't know what I was getting into. So if you're curious, I'd recommend having a read. It wasn't too long, this book, so that was good. One more thing to say before I go. I noticed that a little independent film has been made of As I Lay Dying. It's directed and partly starring James Franco, the actor who you might know from the Spider-Man films, or more recently Spring Breakers. The review I read said it wasn't particularly amazing, but it is an adaptation, so if you can't be bothered reading the book, very soon you'll be able to buy the DVD, or possibly see this film at your local art house cinema. So that looked interesting. And the other thing I was going to say was, if you enjoy my videos, don't hesitate to go to about.me/Angus, spelled ANGOOS. That's where you can find me all over the website. There's all links there. Anyway, that's all. Thank you. Goodbye. Thanks for listening.